everybody, and welcome again to another edition of T Watches a Scary Movie. I, of course, am T, and we're talking scary movies. Welcome to another edition of our holiday horror series. Last week, we got right into it. We were talking the original Black Christmas. We talked Better Watch Out, and then we also discussed A Christmas Horror Story. And now, we are ready to talk three more scary holiday horror classics. Now, I want to remind y'all again, please make sure that you have subscribed to the YouTube channel where you're watching this right now. Trying to make sure everybody can get notified of when new episodes go up, and this is the easiest way to do so. If you subscribe to the new channel, it will give you an alert when a new video is being uploaded, which new episodes are going to be uploaded every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. And then, like I said, if we do any other episodes, toy unboxings, anything like that, we're typically going to throw those up like around Fridays or Saturdays in the week as well. So rest assured, every Wednesday here on YouTube at 8:30, you can see our new episodes. So that's what I'm going to be going for y'all moving forward, okay? Also, make sure to subscribe to the Facebook group. Facebook group is the best place to see when we are doing our watch parties. We skipped out on our weekly Buffy Angel watch party this past Saturday. We'll get back to it this weekend. But yeah, we do our watch parties every Saturday. We do a couple episodes of Buffy, a couple episodes of Angel. And then on Wednesdays, we watch a couple movies together. Typically ones that we've been reviewing. So last week, we happened to do Better Watch Out and A Christmas Horror Story. And this week, we're going to go ahead and do the Black Christmas remake. And then we are also going to be doing Krumpus as well. So we're going to watch Krumpus and we're going to watch Black Christmas 2006. Beyond that, also remember that we did the unboxing for my Krumpus on the Mantle just a week or so ago, and I still have one of those to give away. I'll be giving that away here in a couple weeks, and the only thing you have to do to actually qualify for it, you have to go and watch that unboxing video on the YouTube page, and you just need to comment answering the questions that I told you that I need. I'll pick a winner here in 2 weeks, and I'm going to send you a nice scary Christmas gift, a Krumpus on the Mantle. And of course, if you want to do a scary hot chip challenge or any kind of hot food challenge with me, we'll eat something hot, I'll send it to you so you don't have to spend the money, and then we're going to watch or talk something scary. Let me know that too. We can get that set up. But we have three movies to talk about tonight, like I mentioned. Now, we did the original Black Christmas on the previous episode, so it makes sense that we're just going to kind of continue that series and get right into our first movie, which is Black Christmas 2006. Now, we discussed the original Black Christmas again in the last episode, and I mentioned that while I don't hate the film, it's just really not that great of a watch, honestly. It's one of the very earliest slashers that's out there that set the stage for quite a lot of ones that followed up, including, as we mentioned, the original Halloween. But there are a lot of bigger problems with that film that stop it from being an all-time classic like a lot of people seem to consider it. For example, there's a lot of subplots that we never get more info on. There are characters who are just not interesting, and not every slasher needs to give us a reveal of who the killer is or build that mystery, because we've mentioned that there are older slasher flicks where we just know who the killer is right off the jump. But the problem is that we don't actually get really any good info on who the killer turned out to be. So then all the red herrings and like the superfluous subplots they threw in just come off being really, really bad because they played no merit on the story at all. It just adds so much confusion to the movie. And I also mentioned that I do enjoy this 2006 remake a lot more. And I get that's a controversial statement, but I'm going to explain what I mean so it makes a little more sense, okay? The first point I could bring up is that the story is more simplified. A lot of times people think that the more you throw into it, the better it's going to be. But horror has a very fine line to where if you're going to make like a very intricate horror movie, it better be like one of those deep thinking, well thought out ones. Like we're getting a lot with like Hereditary and Midsummer right now. Like don't just throw things in there because you feel you need to pad your story. It's either good enough to go without it or it's just not that good. And with the remake, they simplify a lot of that story. I mean, the idea here is that the original movie flirted too hard with the idea that Billy wasn't the killer. So when we got to the twist at the end and they confirmed that it was just a bit ridiculous at that point. It just made the entire film not as enjoyable because it's like, oh, I mean, yeah, it makes sense that Billy, and we talked about it, that Billy's the only one who could be committing these murders, but they haven't really done anything to like drive us down that path. We're really thinking that it's going to be Olivia Hussey's character's boyfriend. So when it doesn't turn out to be that, it's just like, whatever. And not only that, but that subplot was just kind of, it was only there for that purpose too. The whole her being pregnant and her boyfriend wanted to start a family and get married and everything. That was only there to build him as a red herring. He actually served no purpose of being in there, nor did that subplot. So it's like, I didn't want those. Like, I could have lived without that. And then the police involvement as well too. I mean, I'm never going to get mad about seeing John Saxon in a movie. You know, that's great seeing him in more and more horror films. But the problem is that he didn't really do anything. The cops didn't end up actually serving really much of any purpose to this story. I mean, they couldn't save the girls. They couldn't really help the girls. And outside of being there to offer the calls are coming from inside the house, like the cops didn't really add anything to this. The remake, though, strips everything down to its essentials. It's just about the girls, the sorority house, and our killer, or killers, because we're past that 10-year rule, so we get to talk about it. We get to see young Billy, so they actually show us basically Billy's background and why he's homicidal and doing the things that he's doing. He grew up in a neglectful home. You know, his dad loved him, obviously, but his mother was very abusive and very neglectful to him. And he eventually watches his mother and her lover murder his father. And he goes a step further because Billy's mother rapes him and eventually gives birth to their inbred child. And after that, Billy kind of has a psychotic break because the mom, he already had one because of the murder of his father, but because the mom is basically replacing Billy with now their son, or technically his sister, Billy just loses it, murders his mom, murders her lover, and disfigures his daughter, who's also his sister, and he gets committed to an asylum. Now, years later, obviously, you know, the house is sold off and stuff, and we're led to believe that this sorority, Delta Alpha Kappa, are the ones who basically bought the house. They've had it for decades, most likely, and then each class takes over the house, and they continue this yearly tradition of leaving Christmas gifts out for Billy, so he doesn't come back and, you know, kill them, because it's an urban legend as far as they know. But unfortunately for this group of girls, they find out it is not an urban legend, and Billy has come back to collect his gifts. Now, I said the story was simplified, and boy, does it help that they move it at a brisk pace. It's actually refreshing how quickly the film moves and doesn't get hung up on all the details that if we looked at it too long, it would honestly make the film kind of shitty. And you get that. That's the way a lot of horror movies work out, which they try to keep it incredibly simplified, but the moment that they try to do something else with that and start throwing in like these deep like connections in the story and everything like that, you get lost in the shuffle with certain films. And I'm glad they didn't bother trying to go that route at all. We get some introductions to the girls, and that's great, because I mean, we basically start off with one of the girls getting immediately killed, just like in the original, and then that kind of starts moving the plot forward. And I love the fact that we don't get Billy's backstory till midway through. They could have given it to us at the beginning, but the fact that we get Billy's story about midway through the film, and the murders are already happening by that point, just kind of adds to what the film is seemingly going for. And our writer-director, Glenn Morgan, who has some experience in the game as he is involved in the Final Destination series. He did the movie Willard. That was the Ben remake, or the Willard remake, with Crispin Glover in it. And then he also did some really good X-Files episodes too. He's talked publicly about the issues that him and producer James Wong had with Dimension and their owners at the time, the Weinstein brothers. And if you're aware of the stories of Harvey Weinstein, you could see his hand all over it, from everything, including the casting, because Harvey Weinstein has a type, the looks the girls are expected to do throughout the movie when it comes to the amount of clothing they're wearing and stuff like that as well. and the added gore, and then the very, very messy ending as well. It should be no surprise. Harvey Weinstein, besides being a predator and a scumbag, also has a history of interjecting his touches in a lot of films he's on, sometimes better, sometimes for worse. And in this case, a lot of it still works. And that's not me giving him credit for it, because, again, he didn't make the damn movie. But a lot of those touches that he forced to happen actually kind of worked in its favor. And one of those is the casting. Our girls, the sorority here includes names like Katie Cassidy, Michelle Trachtenberg, Lacey Chabert, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, amongst others. And these are all actors who, these days we know a lot of them. I mean, Lacey Chabert, Party of Five, Family Guy, Mean Girls, and doing a lot of Hallmark movies, but we all know her from the 90s. Same with Michelle Trachtenberg, who did Buffy, and Harriet the Spy, and Euro Trip and stuff like that. Katie Cassidy, who's big on the CW now. And, of course, there's Mary Elizabeth Winstead. Like, they all have pedigrees, and they all actually have a lot of horror work in their resume, too. So it's actually a relatively good cast of actors to put together for this movie. The girls are actually all enjoyable, which is one thing the original film missed, is that I didn't find myself liking a lot of the sorority members. Like, I like Margot Kidder because it's Margot Kidder, and Olivia Hussey was our heroine, but outside of that, I didn't really enjoy the sorority of the original film. This one is way more enjoyable. The girls actually have character, it seems. And the fact that all of us probably have a connection, at least one of them, through something we've watched or something we grew up with, it just kind of, there's that embedded connection that I'm sure they're relying on. Now, in regards to the killer, big surprise on this one is that we actually have two killers in this. And my assumption for the reasoning behind that is because, again, the original film flirted with the idea that we didn't know who the killer was. It could be Billy, but it could also be, I think Paul was the name of Olivia Hussey's boyfriend's character, and it could be a few other people as well. But the film is straight up like, no, it's Billy that's doing this. Like, it's absolutely Billy. We see Billy straight on, complete with his yellow skin, looking like that yellow bastard from Sin City, which I have to assume that the big reason they went with that was because of Sin City, because I'm actually pretty positive, without question, that Sin City was a Dimension film that the Weinsteins were involved with. And so our killer in this has that illuminated yellow skin, just like Nick Stahl did in Sin City, is that yellow bastard. And I kind of feel that was the only reason why suddenly Billy is yellow in this movie. And it is distracting at first, but then you just kind of go with it because it's not actually a big plot point. So it's just there, I guess, to be kind of gripping and kind of catch your eye. But as I mentioned, we have two killers. And in the original film, one of the notable aspects is that when the calls are coming into the sorority house, the killer is talking a lot about Agnes and Billy. And Billy is the killer, but the killer is bringing up somebody named Agnes, who is it's a child, but it's never follow up on. It's never developed out. It's just those calls, and that's all we get. Here in the remake, Agnes is actually the kid of Billy and his mother, the inbred child that we talked about earlier on. And as it turns out, just as driven crazy by seeing his father get murdered, Agnes was driven crazy by seeing her mother and her lover being murdered, and then having her eye completely disfigured by Billy. So the father-daughter or brother-sister duo are responsible for the killings this time around, and that's more than enough motive to make it work better than the original. It's more interesting to watch Billy this time around do everything he's doing without having the constraints of not knowing much about him that the original did. And with that, the kills are fantastic. Even with the extra gore that gets added to like a 2000s level teen horror film, it actually relies a lot on like those blood spatter shots. And you know the one I'm talking about, like to where someone's about to get stabbed and then they show like a glass and then blood hits that glass and that's all you really see. And you might see the aftermath, but you don't see it actually happening. And quite honestly, it kind of fits. I like the first one or two, I was like, ugh, this is so stupid. But then as the movie keeps on going, like you kind of get used to it and it's not as bad at that point. And actually it fits with the tone of the movie. And it's so cool as well that so many of these name actors, which whether in 2020 they're a name actor, that's beyond the point. This film, it's 14 years old, almost 15 years old at this point. But this movie, honestly, like these had a lot of actors who were still up and coming that are now kind of name actors, and that's kind of cool to see that many people with name recognition being killed in a horror movie. That doesn't really happen. Usually you'll have like two big names in there and everybody else is just kind of cannon fodder. So the fact that anybody with a name was kind of like up for being killed is really, really cool. And the kills, like I said, so good. So good. They're brutal. They're mean. He's not nice with these girls at all. And that's, that made the film much more interesting to kind of stay up with. Now, in regards to the Christmas connection, it's pretty big. I mean, we're focusing on it because, again, that's the whole point of holiday horror. But Christmas plays heavily on the tragedy of Billy and Agnes. Billy loves Christmas. His mom didn't care at all. Agnes wanted to love Christmas, and she was getting it force fed by her mother before Billy did what he had to do. And the film takes place on Christmas Eve, so those Christmas connections are pretty big and overt for the movie itself. That's a big driving force of it. Now, I don't expect to turn any of you who are big fans of the original Black Christmas onto this remake. It is notorious amongst a lot of people, honestly, for being a terrible film. And I will absolutely admit that I am notorious for liking some terrible films as well. But I'm unapologetic about it. The 2006 remake is better than the original. It's a lot more fun to watch. It's definitely more entertaining. Check it out for sure. It's not as bad as people make it out to be. You'll get some laughs out of it for sure. And that brings us to our second film of the evening. Now we finally get to talk one of my favorites. We're talking Krumpus. Yes, Krumpus historically comes around the night of December 5th, tagging along with St. Nicholas, and he visits visits houses all nights with Santa Claus. So Santa Claus and Krampus are just going around the night of December 5th. And, that's St. Nicholas Day and everything. And what happens is that Santa puts candy in the shoes of good kids and birch twigs in the shoes of bad kids. But Krampus's particular specialty is punishing naughty children. And legend has it that throughout the Christmas season, misbehaving kids are beaten with birch branches or even disappeared, stuffed, and Krampus is sacked to be taken back to his lair to be tortured or in some cases eaten. Oh, it's such a great story. And he's usually represented with having horns and hooves and claws and sharp teeth. He's a very scary individual now. And in this movie, an unfortunate family that forgets the true meaning of the holidays is about to learn the truth behind this dark Christmas tradition. Oh, Krumpus. So our film's director and writer, Michael Dougherty, his name should sound familiar as he was the mind behind one of my other holiday favorites, and not Christmas holiday, but a Halloween holiday horror favorite, Trick or Treat. He both wrote and directed that movie as well. And if you have heard me talk about it and if you've seen it, you know Trick or Treat is amazing. So that says enough about why you should give this movie a chance. I fully believe, after seeing this in Trick or Treat, that we should give this man the reins to any holiday he wants to make a horror movie about, because damn it, I'm ready to watch a July 4th horror movie written and directed by this guy. I'll watch a Labor Day one. Give me a Boxing Day, Memorial Day, whatever. I'll watch them all, because he's 2 for 2 right now, and that's saying a lot when it comes to the horror genre for sure. Now, we get introduced to this family who the tale surrounds. The family, it's two families merged together, but that includes Toni Collette, David Koechner, Allison Tolman, and Adam Scott, another one of my favorites. And after their son Max gets in a brawl with another kid at a holiday concert, it seems most of the family's Christmas cheer is missing. The family squabbles over food, they squabble over drinks, spending habits, tradition, gifts, everything that you could possibly around the holidays. We get to see these two families kind of arguing about. And Max tries his hardest to keep up these traditions as the families are interacting. Let's do cookies, let's wrap presents, let's watch Charlie Brown Christmas, and even let's write Santa, a letter about what we want for Christmas too. But unfortunately, his cousins choose to embarrass him at dinner because Max is kind of older at this point and he's still going with everything Santa, and they kind of make fun of him for that. But unfortunately, that leads to the worst of their Christmas visitors coming. Now, in the 3 films that Mike Dougherty has put together, he's managed to put together fantastic casts that really help sell whatever tale he's been telling. Trick or Treat obviously being a big standout because it's an anthology series, so we can use so many different actors in the movie. But there's something to like about each member of the family here in Krumpus. And that really speaks to their acting strengths, because then we also can find why we don't like a lot of these family members as well too. It's easy to see earlier on in the movie that all of these characters are set to be, a hint of selfish, a hint of, being conceited, they're mean, they're rude, and deep down, everybody has Christmas spirit, but we don't really get to see any of that except for Omi, the grandma, and Max. Really, everybody else isn't really feeling the Christmas spirit in this movie. And so we're not really confused when Krampus eventually sets his sights on them. But what would really show whether or not the movie is successful or not is whether or not we actually care, I feel, about these characters once all the bad stuff starts happening. Like when people start getting killed, how much do we actually care about what's happening to them? And once again, the film proves to be absolutely successful because all these characters start transforming into rather sympathetic and actually quite enjoyable characters once the bad stuff starts up. Allison Tolman and Adam Scott honestly offer the best transformations, in my opinion, just because both of them come off as characters earlier on who, Adam Scott obviously seems to be like upper class, and so probably hasn't had to ever get his hands dirty for any of the stuff he wants to do. And Allison Tolman, who is, middle to, lower class and everything like that, clearly has had to work hard in her life and hasn't had to do it in a while, doesn't just care anymore. And the fact that as the movie goes on and the situation gets worse, both of them kind of adapt into these like alpha figures who are there to really protect their family and do whatever it takes to keep them safe. And that's not to say their respective partners, played by Toni Collette and David Koechner, aren't good. They really are. David Koechner is hilarious in so many things, and he brings so much levity to moments in the film. And not only that, but he's been in a lot of really good horror films as well too. Cheap Thrills is so good. Cheap Thrills is so good. If you have not checked that out, please make sure to catch that. And he did a Final Destination movie too. And Toni Collette obviously is so commanding on the screen and whatever that she does, that when she shows up for her hero moments later on in the movie, it's so natural what she's doing. But the cast is so good and they're written so well that it's fun to watch the transformation that they have with this. Now, talking Krumpus himself, he is absolutely terrifying. And there's plenty of iterations of Krumpus in Christmas lore, different ways that he looks. But this film, I feel, is responsible in a big way for bringing a lot of Krumpus recognition to the States, because he's very well known in Europe. But here in the States, there's still a lot of a learning curve with it before this movie. And they play up the Santa comparisons quite a lot because, if you see any of the photos of Krumpus, any of the ones I've been showing here or anything like that, he's usually not depicted as being that overtly similar to Santa. Like, yes, he's with Santa, but he doesn't look like him. And in this one, he's got the big red Santa coat with the hood. He's got a white beard. He's got a sack of toys and everything like that. And man, creepy as hell, especially because that sack of toys has more monsters in it. We get a demonic Jack-in-the-Box. We opened the unboxing of the toy last week and saw Teddy Clow, the teddy bear that has like the jagged teeth and the claws. He's got killer gingerbread men, sadistic elves. Everything is there. It is the reverse of Christmas in every single way. And the film is so good because it's not even about the monster and all his little underlings that he brings with him. It's about family. Because again, this family, like these families are so selfish, they're so mean, they're stuck in these shells that they're not enjoying Christmas in the holiday season. And because of everything that slowly unfolds over the film itself, you see all of these characters go through a transformation into, again, realizing what they have to cherish and what they have to be thankful for, and that they've been doing this the wrong way this season for sure. Now, the film doesn't actually go big on the gore or on the language, actually, which was kind of surprising that even with the rating that it has, it's actually one of the more appropriate horror flicks out there that you might be able to show a younger audience, like, you know, teens and everything like that. But I will say, again, the design of Krumpus and his monster underlings are visually terrifying, so younger kids may get nightmares from it, but boy, is it so much fun. Now, as for the Christmas relation, Krampus is literally the opposite of Santa Claus. That's his point. The film is set in the last few days leading up to Christmas. It's about your loss of Christmas spirit. So Christmas is very heavily featured in this film. And man, it's like, scary is not really the right word, but there is sure a very dark tone that the film keeps up the entire way through. That's just, for some reason, so warm and fuzzy. I like that a lot. And I know that makes me morbid, but I don't care. And the last thing I will say is that the film makes it clear this isn't an isolated incident, and that Krampus clearly has done this with numerous families over the years, hundreds of years at that. So a sequel isn't actually out of the realm of possibility, even though we're 5 years out, as it would be easy to just do another film with a completely different family starring. I don't think it'll happen, and even if it doesn't, that's fine, because this movie will still be a top 3 Christmas horror film for me for the good foreseeable future, and that's saying a hell of a lot. So make sure to check it out. It is actually a nice tale that I would say watch with like your family. Just, you know, they'll get some ideas to stop being Grinches if they check this movie out. But make sure you do, because it is one of my favorites for sure. So, welcome back from our break. Really quickly, I'd like to point out again my very fine holiday sweater that I have. Obviously, y'all saw the Jason one that I had last week, and here I was thinking, you know what? Let's do another one as well too. And so that's where you're going to get my Texas Chainsaw Massacre sweater. It's from the same place, Middle of Beyond. I will put the link right here in case y'all want to go ahead and pick something cool up. These sweaters are super comfortable, and they're also warm, which is so nice as well, especially because it's cold in my recording studio. So, you know, gotta wear these while I can to stay warm. But we are on our very last film of our second holiday horror special. We are talking Silent Night, Deadly Night. And as an added bonus to this, I have never seen this film, okay? Last week, all the movies we were talking about, I had seen every single one of them, no issues there at all. I had seen the Black Christmas remake. I had seen Krumpus, obviously, but I've never actually seen any of the films in the Silent Night, Deadly Night series. And what's kind of funny is that I've kind of kept track when like Scream Factory did their release on these specific movies. And because I had never seen it and honestly hadn't really heard that much about it, I was never interested in checking it out. But in looking for holiday horror, I was like, this is a perfect time to actually check this out. Now, I made the dumb mistake of not buying just the Blu-ray or DVD straight up, because surprisingly, this is not available for purchase on streaming services. It's only available for rent. And I loathe renting movies. I want to own everything, good or bad. It's just that's an investment. So I rented it. I'm going to buy it because I enjoyed it. Let's get into it though. So Silent Night, Deadly Night tells the story of Billy. When Billy was younger, Billy, his parents, and his little baby brother Jimmy go to visit Billy's grandfather in a nursing home. Now, grandfather is just completely catatonic, so he's not really responding to the family coming to visit. And then when they leave Billy with the grandpa suddenly breaks his trance and tells Billy that he needs to be afraid of Santa Claus because Santa's great if you're a good boy or a good girl, but if you've been naughty, you need to be afraid because Santa will punish you. And he basically instills the fear of, not fear of God, the fear of Santa into Billy. And this is not just the whole, oh, be good so you can get like an Xbox or Nintendo or anything like that. Like, Grandpa makes it sound like if you're not good, Santa Claus is gonna like break off and kill you at this point. That's how bad he really freaks Billy out. So they leave. The family leaves Grandpa. And again, Billy's traumatized already at that point. He's already like now not looking forward to Santa Claus. He's now terrified of any chance of seeing Santa. And in the meantime, we see a random Santa try to hold up a gas station. And by try to, he kills the attendant for no reason at all, except for the $31 in the till. Later on, while Billy and his family are basically trying to return home, they run across this Santa who proceeds to murder Billy's parents. First thing I will say is that, oh man, I forget how much I enjoy the practical effects of these older movies because they like I'll never be a special effects guy. Like, I'm never gonna have that kind of talent to put that stuff together, but I always find it so cool in older slasher flicks like this, to where they're doing things like somebody getting stabbed or anything like that, and they make it look so like seamless the way that they do the fake blood and possibly like a fake body piece to cut into it. I only mention that because Santa gruesomely kills Billy's parents. But anyway, Billy is absolutely traumatized by that even further, seeing Santa murder his parents. And so he and Jimmy end up in a orphanage or a convent, basically. It's ran by nuns. Billy continues having a traumatic childhood because Mother Superior there at the convent is a little bit on the sadistic side. She believes in capital punishment, and then that is the best way to keep everybody in line. Billy receives more than a few shares of beating and goes as far as to knock out a Santa that they hire to come and visit, because obviously he hasn't gotten away from that at all. He is still completely traumatized by his parents being murdered by a Santa. Who wouldn't be, right? So Billy grows up and is instilled with the fear that you have to be good. And that includes not having sex. Because at the convent, Billy ends up peeping in on a couple of kids who are having sex. And Mother Superior punishes him for watching that. So, Billy grows up. He seems like a well-adjusted kid. He still has some issues with Christmas, obviously, because it's still a very traumatic thing for him. And it's kind of fun to see Billy get a job in a toy store and then just completely freak out over anything Santa-related that's going on. But unfortunately, Billy eventually has a psychotic break. A girl that he likes at the toy store that he works for ends up being accosted by Billy's direct boss. And for whatever reason, that sends Billy over the edge, and Billy goes on a murderous spree. This was such an interesting film because I can't name anything off the top of my head. There's a few films that like have those twists in it, but it's very interesting to see a horror movie to where who our main character is, they're the bad guy. And I'm not saying we haven't seen horror movies where we're coming from the perspective of the bad guy, but just to go that we're following Billy, he's innocent, he's technically our protagonist and who we're seeing the film through. And then basically halfway through the film, he's the bad guy, and there's nobody else to represent the good. Just to be clear, after Billy becomes the villain of the piece, there's not any other protagonist who's taking over Billy's role. There's a few cops, a few of the nuns are still around, but nobody's actually stepping into that role of the protagonist, and I found that to be so incredibly interesting. The kills are fantastic in this film. He uses an axe, he uses a utility knife, a bow and arrow, he's throwing people through windows. It is so hilarious and so good. Now, to be clear, this is a horrible movie. It is a horrible film. It is cheesy as all out. It's just one of the cheesiest things made. But that's actually one of the better parts of it, is that I feel like this film just didn't take itself seriously at all, and it came off better because of that. So after Billy becomes the bad guy, we're just following him along killing just random people he comes across that he feels are naughty. And it's so funny because every time he kills somebody, punish, 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 punish. And that's his trademark line is punish, with naughty being the backup trademark line. But again, Billy has a psychotic break and he basically becomes the Santa that murdered his parents, and he goes on to start murdering multiple people. Now his ultimate goal is to get back to the convent because clearly he blames so much of his traumatic childhood on Mother Superior, so he's trying to get back there to murder her. Doesn't really work out for him too well. And the film sets up a very clear sequel with his little brother. And more people are familiar with Silent Night, Deadly Night 2, which is about his brother Jimmy. And we're talking that next week, so I'm excited to get into that. But man, I didn't expect to like this film, especially considering the availability of it for streaming. And it was really, really enjoyable. If you're looking just for a cheesy slasher flick to watch, and especially right now we're in the holiday season, this is absolutely the one that I'm going to point out, like more so than anything I reviewed last week. And yeah, Krumpus is still at the top of the list for me for suggesting Christmas horror flicks to everybody. But like when it comes to Christmas slashers, this is the number one right here for me as of right now. It is so much fun, and the Christmas connection is all throughout because, again, Billy is motivated by punishing naughty kids, and he's dressed in a Santa costume from the moment he starts murdering everybody till the end of the film. It's directly pushed forward by Christmas itself. Now, in regards to gore and everything, there is a lot of blood in this. I don't know if I would say it's particularly a gory film, though, because the special effects don't really show a lot of like people getting like their guts cut out or anything like that. So I don't think I wouldn't necessarily call it a really gory film. It is a really, really bloody one, though. But it's actually a really fun movie to watch. I would highly suggest checking this one out. And so, that's going to do it for us, folks. We have talked Krumpus, we've talked Black Christmas 2006, and we've talked Silent Night, Deadly Night. Now, I'm going to remind you again, we still have a few more holiday horror episodes. I still got more holiday scary movies to go over with y'all. But remember, again, every Wednesday we have our new episodes at 8:30 on the YouTube channel. The link was earlier on in the show. Make sure to subscribe so you know when new episodes are coming out. As well, if you want to keep up on things like watch parties that we're doing or maybe game nights, make sure to subscribe to the Facebook group as well, because that's where we typically post that information with it too. And of course, if you want a chance to win a Krumpus on the Mantle, make sure to go watch the unboxing video for Krumpus on the Mantle, and you'll get a chance to actually win one for yourself for Christmas. But that's going to do it for us, folks. We do have a watch party this week, so make sure to check out the Facebook group for the link. As well, we got an unboxing coming later this week as well, too. And for any of you Midsommar fans, you're going to want to check that one out now. But that's it for me. Y'all remember to go out and watch something scary. I'm T. We've been talking scary movies. Stay scared.